Welcome to the newest episode of All Things LOCS. Now, today we have a real special guest for you, and it's going to be Amber Ybarra talking everything about self-publishing a book, getting on stages, and just being present on social media. And we talk a lot about in healthcare misinformation and disinformation that is out there. But one of the things that we don't really discuss too is how to differentiate yourself from your competition. And in reality, patients don't come to medical clinics simply because of titles anymore. They have a lot of choices, and they want to know what separates you from the doctor or the chiropractor or the physical therapist down the road. And that's why Amber's going to come in here and explain to you not only how to write a book, but what writing a book does for you, how it elevates your brand, your authority, your expertise. It allows you to get your information out to the public, helps you actually improve your patient experience. So these are all things you're going to want to deeply listen to. And she's got a real interesting journey here that's going to be completely relevant for anybody in healthcare. See you guys there.
Amber, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank
Yes.
you both.
So you are one of the people that very rarely, I would say, like some people have this kind of rude demeanor. Some people have like BDE, if you know what that means. But you have this like Disney princess energy that is like the best. And so I'm really happy to be here. We've been friends for a pretty long time. And just to kind of give you like a really quick intro, is that you are a former construction CEO turned speaker and a business development partner with selfpublishing.com.
Yes, I
Dude,
am.
they're freaking amazing. And you're also an award-winning author and a high-performance coach. You have a new book coming out later on this year. Is that correct?
I do.
That's freaking awesome. And then it is around your 4S method.
Yes.
Now, I'm excited to dive into that, but your work has been featured on national television and premier platforms like TEDx, Success Magazine, New York Weekly, The List, and Grant Cardone's 10X stages.
Yes.
Yes, all that. So talk to us a little bit about like your 4S method. I'd love to kind of hear about that.
Yeah, so the 4S method, I feel like I've spent so much time really investing in different masterminds, conferences, coaches, especially getting out of, which maybe we'll get into, the modeling and entertainment industry, then doing a complete 180 into construction, and then from there doing what I do now. And what I learned is the more I got to learn about myself and what I wanted to do after construction, all revolved around really kind of getting on more stages and speaking about my story and maybe sharing all of the things I invested in and being like, hey, you don't have to spend $100K now to do this. Let me put it in a book, especially for those that maybe want to be on stages more. So the 4S method, I talk a lot about strategy first, social media, which is so important, right? The brand building, stories for the stage. And then, of course, having that really social kind of interaction with people that are your sounding board. That's the 4S, is having your sounding board. Some people call it board of directors.
Okay, like
right?
Village of Advisors almost?
Village of Advisors.
Okay.
I call it a sounding board. And really having that be the thing that helps guide you to your next level. So,
Which one would you say people typically struggle with the most, business owner-wise?
I would say the first one is the sounding board, because you can be really kind of get off tier with your strategy and maybe not go in the right direction with social media if you don't have clarity with like what's that end goal, and then reverse engineer. And most time what I find, people are asking their friends, their family that aren't in the industry or aren't experts in what they do. So they're not getting the correct information there. Yeah.
It's also like where people they don't want to get help, or they're embarrassed to get help. And so even just identifying who's a good person to be part of that sounding board.
Yeah.
Sounding board. Yeah. And I feel like that's a big one. That feels like it's probably the biggest mental hurdle that we've seen. Someone's like, hey man, you should go get some help. And they're like, they don't want to open up or seek that. So it's a lot of embarrassment
I mean, one of my mentors, and I'll mention her a lot, Jen Gottlieb, she always talks about how we're so afraid to be beginners at something. And so I think that once you've ran a business, and I've been there too, where it's like, I kind of reached a high level in this area of my life, and then I started something new, and all of a sudden I'm like, I am starting, I call it starting from experience now. I used to think, great, I'm starting from scratch, but it's like, no, I'm starting from experience now. And you don't know until you get the reps in how far you could go with that thing. And I feel like that's what a lot of people struggle with.
So when you're talking about storytelling and, you mentioned, getting on a stage and self-publishing. So for somebody's out there and they're saying, why would I ever? Right, they're probably thinking, why would I ever want to get on a stage? What's the point? But then why would I ever even think about writing a book?
100%.
In a professional setting, especially with healthcare, you have a lot of people, doctors or doctorates, like high level education. What would be the benefit for somebody in that position to actually write a book?
Well, we actually have a lot of healthcare professionals that come into selfpublishing.com and they realize that one, they can have it in their clinic to give to people, right? So they're taking all of their knowledge and really answering all of those repeated conversations, repeated questions. And now all of a sudden, you don't have to focus on answering all those repeated questions. You're focusing on your job with them. And now they can have that book so that they can kind of go more in depth. I feel like it gives really anyone, especially healthcare industries, gives them influence, gives them authority. Also, they have a different connection with you when they maybe get to know more about your background and your story, right? Because at the end of the day, what's going to set you apart from one clinic to another, it's going to be they really fall in love with who you are, how you service them, your team, how are you a leader with people, what is your mindset around that, and it's a really big differentiator. So,
well, one thing you said, off camera was that there's some relationships you have where they essentially coach doctors. And the personal development side of things with some doctors and some business owners and just people in general is like that's like an area where they tend to avoid or kind of put off a little bit. And would you say that part of the book writing process is really filleting yourself open and getting everything out on paper? And that can be really intimidating for people. But once they do that, it's one of the most powerful things that they can have, not only for their brand, but also, one of the things that Dan and I talked about in previous episodes was, that there is, I hate using the word like misinformation from a healthcare perspective, but just that it's having a doctor actually write down their own research and what they've come across that might be going against the grain, but it's necessary and it's important just to advance as a whole. So I guess where I'm going with that is if there are people that are kind of struggling with maybe putting themselves open, what are some tips and tricks that you recommend that they kind of apply so they can actually put pen to paper and start building their book?
100%. I would say it's nice to go back to the beginning, right? Sometimes we find ourselves, whatever industry you're 5 years in, you're 10 years in, everything that starts to kind of be repetitive in your own life, something you're used to, it's your new norm. Don't forget who you were 3 and 5 years ago. And some of the information that maybe you're speaking to clients about, want to share in a book, want to share on a stage for, no one knows about that backstory. And I feel like that backstory is really important. So a good place to start is just kind of think about your journey. How can you document that journey, where you got to where you're at? And don't forget that when you've been in business, even 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, you're in the 1-2% of most people that start a business and then they don't keep it because it is difficult. And so then how can you, help people with that journey on top of your really putting your expertise in the forefront and saying, okay, sure, I also help people with XYZ, but what makes me different? What's that special sauce that you have?
Yeah, it's funny you talking about that. And I'm thinking about an episode that literally just came out with Dr. Adrienne Townsend. She's writing a book, but she talks to her patients a lot about her journey as a single mom. She's orthopedic surgeon, but then she talks a lot about her dancing. She's been slaying it for like 8 years, but she's like bring that in. So it's like to your point, like me a little bit, helps build rapport. It gives you a different background. It's just all right. Here's the title. Here's the initials after the degree, so to speak. One, if you're talking to somebody, what's their biggest misconception? If I'm somebody who's like I'm interested, what's the biggest misconception they have about even just writing a book?
Biggest misconception I would say is that it's going to take years. It's going to be a lot of time.
That's what I believed.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Oh, the biggest one that I love that people say all the time is, well, sure, maybe it can help my brand, but books don't make you money. And that's not true. The truth is that you don't have the strategy for it to be revenue generating. And so that's something I feel like self-publishing has. That's why I'm writing my third book with them. I wish I had them 7 years ago when I wrote my first book. and realizing that, there's a whole strategy to it. There's pre-launch, there's marketing. You got to format it the right way. You have to tap into your correct audience. And if you're trying to do something like that yourself, of course, it's going to feel overwhelming. You're not going to know where to start. But the good news is when you have someone that walks you through that, it's really kind of coming down to, okay, now it's just about getting your truth, your story, your methodology, whatever it is you want to write about on paper. Not that we only do nonfiction, we do children's book, fiction, all the things, but that would be a good place to start, is having someone handhold you through all the things.
That's a good segue into that, because there's like one part of it is just actually just writing the thing and leaving this kind of mindset that's going to take years. So that's a really big one. But you also touched on another thing on your 4S's, which is kind of the social side of it, where you are essentially it's time to market. Like, okay, the book's done, everything is done. Now let's get out there. Let's get the book out there and let's get you out there.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I'll kind of speak for myself, like that is a very different, like I'm willing to do the work here, but like sometimes with promoting something, I'm like, like, so, so when you're, talking about that, like how to market so it reaches people, or like the best approach to kind of do that, what's kind of your 2 cents, or what's your perspective on, now the book is done, now what?
Yeah, so we're talking about two things here. I just want to give clarity. Love that I get to work with selfpublishing.com, and there's a whole marketing strategy that we have a great team of people for that, headquartered in Austin, Texas, help people with that. But on my personal methodology on the social media side, it's like so many people are the best kept secret because they're not documenting their journey. They're not sharing the testimonials that they have. They'll have 4 or 5 on their website, and then they leave out the other 400 that they've worked so hard to get in the many years that they've been in practice. And really having that kind of documented and shown online, having great call to actions, doing lives, cross-pollinating with other users, right, that are maybe in their industry or maybe opposite from the industry, like the person you mentioned that also did dance and incorporates that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big piece of it. I will say on the self-publishing side, one thing I love about what we do there is that you really don't have to have a following to have a really great book that gets distributed well and has hundreds of 5-star reviews, because again, there's a strategy to that. But I do personally think having a personal brand is always going to help that. It's going to give you a little bit more leverage, especially when you want to get onto more stages, more podcasts.
Yeah.
I personally feel like my book helped me land my first TED Talk. Like there are just certain things that put you in authority more so than when you don't have a book or a brand.
So with our guests, like we send out essentially like a discovery form. And there was one thing that you said that Dan and I like looked at each other and we're like, she is the first person that actually said anything like this. And it was like, Antonio, you are a god. No, I'm just kidding. But it was
Yes.
Definitely nobody's ever
totally
done
said
that.
that.
yeah, like no one said that, just my mom, but that's about it. But one thing he said was that we are so busy working in our business. Now, this is usually what people say is like, we're so busy in our business that we can't work on systems, ops, policy, procedures. Like we can't really do that because I'm so entrenched in the business.
Yep.
You didn't say that. What you said was that it's sometimes a mistake that people do in their respective industry is that you're so in your business that we don't take the time to properly build out our brand, community, and authority. Dive into that a little bit further, because it does actually kind of seem like when people are running a business, it's like, oh, I've just systems, but you're the first one. It's like, no, you also need to take some time to properly build this.
Yeah.
Kind of unpack a little bit more about what you mean and why that's important.
Well, I feel like with systems processes, again, coming from like my former construction background, running different teams, you should have certain SOPs in place. You should have maybe a marketing team. You should have, you should really hire those things out. But I feel like where people miss the mark is they're not talking about all the things that they do. And so if you're not building your brand simultaneously, if you're not creating community, especially if you're not expanding your network, which is the most important. Maybe you connect with someone else that is in your field, but not in your niche. like that's going to be a really great opportunity for collaboration and to help their audience and vice versa. So I think spending more time on the brand building part makes a big difference. And I've seen it in high performers time and time again. So
I'm always, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you probably hear the same thing. It's just those magical words of, I don't have the time.
oh yeah, hear it for all the things.
Yeah.
I've been a person that was like, I don't have the time for this. And then you get your priorities straight and you realize, okay, what's really going to move the needle in my business? So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, right? Is what am I doing on the day-to-day that
yeah.
is maybe busy work that's not actually getting anywhere? And then you have some people say, I won't spend an hour a week maybe getting social media clips, or even I've had some doctors say, why would I spend an hour a week filming a podcast or a half an hour? Like, what are you talking about? It's 30 minutes of content to get your voice out. You're always complaining about how there's so much crap on social media. Your opportunity was like, I'm too busy to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
How do you actually structure those conversations then to help them make that shift, right? Because even like
Yeah.
networking, Amber, I'm too busy. I'm in the business till 7 o'clock at night. What do you want me to do?
So you're too busy to grow your business? That's what I'm hearing, right? And here's the thing with prioritizing time and really kind of shifting from, good leader to great leader is what I've seen a lot of high performers do is they're thinking, oh, great, I have to schedule one on Monday, maybe take 30 minutes Wednesday, then another Friday. Most high performers, they will take 3 days in a quarter and film 16 podcasts. They'll do a tour. They're going to sit down and write a book in 2 weeks. It's really about speed as well, right? One thing that I love that Chandler always talks about from self-publishing, Chandler Bolt, is just like, fell fast, fell forward, right? I feel like so many people are stuck on doing it perfectly and they get stuck in perfectionism that they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to not have it perfect. They're afraid to not have all the things together. And to me, especially if you're walking your talk, no one knows your story better than you do. If you're teaching something, no one knows what you're teaching better than you do. Just speak your truth. And if you fumble, well, it's part of the process, but you kind of got to start somewhere if you're wanting to start kind of being seen differently and as the expert, top leading expert.
Yeah.
Real quick. So, you brought a good point, that fear of failure leading to people maybe just not being stuck in inaction. But then you're also, and you've mentioned, not right here, but on your forum, about the aspect of people being overwhelmed because of the scope of the project, right? So it's, holy shit, I got to write a book. There's got to be so many things that go into it, and then they never even take the first steps, even just looking up, how do I do it? How do you kind of walk them through that?
Well, first and foremost, it's really their decision on whether it's a priority or not, right? Realistically, if you spend 2 to 4 hours, really 2 hours a week, right? Focusing on your book, focusing on writing, you can have a book done in 90 days, 4 months. So it's really about the output of time you're willing to give to the outcome you desire, whether it's a book, whether it's getting on podcasts.
Yeah.
So it really depends on prioritizing. And I feel like the best way to do that is to delegate better, right? If you're doing the things that really someone else could be doing, then look at your budget, figure out where can you spend less time doing the mundane things that really don't require you to be in the business for, and then delegate that and spend your time elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Analysis paralysis is huge, where people don't move forward. But you also said something too just a second ago. You got to like walk the walk. And one of the things you wrote down was that your team doesn't follow your words; they follow your standard.
Yep.
How does that look like when you are coaching like high performance individuals or environments versus maybe what you did in construction?
Yeah, I would say I wish I learned so much more. I started the construction company when I was 24 years old. I had a lot of mistakes made. I am 38 now, proudly, and it's really nice to learn from other people who have, $10, $25 million companies a year. And I feel like, repeat the question about the difference between what?
Yeah. So, people follow your words, like setting that standard, and how that looks like setting with like a high performance individual versus like, you're running like a construction team. How does that look like with maybe these two different areas for you?
I feel like really it could be the same depending on the leader. You have to keep yourself accountable. You know, I've seen and worked and partnered with people that they're there before, you know, you get in for a project and they're the last to leave.
Mhm.
They don't make excuses. They're not running late. They're keeping to the promises that they make. They're treating their team correctly, right? They have integrity. The things that maybe most people don't see that are on social platforms, they're doing behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
then that makes everyone else rise up to that same level.
Yeah.
So, whatever industry you're at, even if you're in your first year of business, I think that's the best way to go about it is to make sure that you keep a high standard for yourself, high standard for the people. And sometimes that could be really difficult because then it entails hard conversations with people that you
Yeah.
love working with,
Yeah.
but that you have to have because at the end of the day, you're running a business and it is up to you to keep, you know, providing for your team and those people.
One thing you said too was you got to look at your budget, what you're prioritizing, delegation, automation.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of a natural progression is like when someone's an operator running their business, it's like they're in it. How did your leadership change when you stepped away from some of the day-to-day ops? Like when you're in it versus kind of functioning at a 30,000-foot view. What's kind of that adjustment or those changes, if any, that you've experienced?
I got bigger contracts.
Oh yeah, that's the point, right?
I was
Yeah.
able to focus on the higher level contracts at the time in the construction company, especially even with some of the coaching that I did, working on better partnerships, being able to step away from the business and do things like go to networking events, invest in masterminds,
Mhm.
which is where you and I met. That would have never happened if I still stayed for the day to day.
Mhm.
And I mean, really finding my own version of balance. Not that I believe in balance, by the way,
Yeah, what is
in
that,
any
right?
means.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you kind of listen to your body and what you need in that time of life, you know, maybe you have a family, you had twins, everything's going to shift. Wherever you are in life, right? All those things are going to shift. But that's where it changed for me is, yeah, relying on my team more. But most importantly, and I'm very lucky, I had out of the 27 guys, 5 different crews that I ran in construction. Most of them have been with me for about 8 years out of the 11. And building that trust is so important because once you know that you can rely on someone, to me, that makes all the difference. But it takes time. It
Mhm.
takes calling them out on their BS. It takes also showing up for them in a way that they know that you care
Yeah, they're
about
back. Yeah.
where they are in their life and with the business, and even partnering with the different companies and teams that I'm working with. That on the other side is what helps me want to do my best because I see them holding, you know, accountability, integrity, all those things, and then it makes me want to give more. And now I see how my guys felt. It's like be that leader, you know?
Yeah, and people sometimes just make it more confusing and difficult than it needs to be. It's like, how do I be a better leader? Some like a lot of what you
Yeah.
describe is just like, how do you want to show up on the day to day? And you know, I look at even something you said earlier is like the best like the unknown secret, so to speak, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're the expert that nobody knows about,
Yep.
right? So you start taking some actions to not just improve yourself as a person and leader, but then those steps that get you, you know, the 20% that get you 80% of results, so to speak. So maybe even somebody saying, all right, you know what, maybe it's I want to speak on a stage or write a book, whatever. I don't think we always factor in the trickle down effect that has on the team in terms of, holy crap, you're so busy, you're the owner or leader, whatever it is, running around, but you're still finding time to take these other endeavors. And, you know, I think that's where we miss it a lot. There's a doctor I worked with, and he got this high level certification. He passed his test, a little different, but he passed his test, and then he didn't tell anybody. And I'm like, so I was like, bro, what are you doing, dude? He's like,
Let
what?
people celebrate
Yeah,
you.
so I was like, people, that's exactly what I said. I was like, all right, number one, I was like, people want to celebrate your success. But I was like, number two, you're not showing them that there's another level to the game. You're letting them think
Yes.
that staying where we're at is okay. If you're not saying, here's what I'm working on, because I
Mhm.
know how long he studied to get that next certification. I was like, dude, you put in a shit ton of work. People should know that, what goes into it.
And that brings up another good point is I feel like people don't realize when you're in the right rooms and around the right team, we're ready to celebrate your wins. That hypes us up.
Yes.
And so just for those people who maybe are in an environment that you're like, oh, maybe you don't want to share because you don't want people to think you're trying to, be too
Cocky
cool for
maybe,
school,
or-
being
yeah.
too cocky about things. You're in the wrong room. Like, and I'm not saying leave your office, leave the place where you're at.
Yeah,
Burn
yeah.
it down,
outta
start
here.
over.
Watch
Yeah.
Jerry Maguire, and then like, I'm
Show me
leaving.
the money.
Yeah, we're out of here.
No, but I am saying that, like, to me, that's what networking does, and investing in coaches and masterminds and people that are just like at a higher level. You're never gonna find someone who's doing as much or more than you.
Talk down
bringing
and
you
like
down
judge you.
at
Yeah.
all. And so
That's
that's
such
important.
that's such a good segue too, especially around like masterminds. And so now masterminds can mean different things to different people. But
Yeah.
so I met Dan through a mastermind, I met you through a mastermind. Like some of like really good relationships have come through masterminds.
Oh yeah.
Like just the absolute best. Now there's some really stellar masterminds, and then there's ones where it's like you want to run for the hills. But for you, like what is a mastermind and what is a good mastermind?
That's a great question. I don't have like
Thanks.
the
Thanks, Amber.
dictionary.
Yeah.
I don't have the dictionary description of it, but a mastermind is really, to me, simply put, a high level community where you can network, grow, learn tactical, tangible things that you could take back to implement into your life and business.
Mhm.
And it's a growth space.
And what's a good one? And I don't mean like a specific mastermind, but you walk in and because you have experience with
So
multiple,
many.
yeah,
Too
so
many.
many, right?
Yeah.
And Dan and I, we've experienced different ones too, and even just for myself, where there's some where you do walk in and you're like, and there's other ones you walk in and there's an electricity in the air.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So what's like a good one for you where you walk in and you're like, okay, and then you're kind of vetting it and you're like, these are the signs of a really strong mastermind.
Antonio, it's a vibe.
It's a
No, okay. Outside of the vibe check,
Yeah.
Which is a thing.
Which is legit.
Which is a thing.
It's legitimate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Your gut knows, man, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah,
Or
these
it's
people
like,
suck.
oh my gosh, I am the dumbest person here, and I'm so excited to learn from people. But really, truly, a lot of it to me is you'll find it out in conversations. One, are they friendly? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, how many millions, billions you make a year. If you are not good with people in conversation and you can treat people like just a human being, to me, that's kind of a big red flag.
Mhm.
Is just like a kind conversation. We're all here to do big, great things, make an impact in the world. You don't got to be cocky about it, but more so than anything, I'd say, what does a conversation sound like? Is it someone that maybe, did most of the people in that room just switch from being, just as an example, fitness professionals, and now they're starting to become life coaches,
Mhm.
and they're at the beginning stages of their career? Or are you having more conversations with people saying, man, I finally, hit this marker in my company,
Mhm.
and these are the goals that I have for this next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah.
There's a really big difference in that conversation. And it's not that it's good or bad. It's just about recognize and be aware of where you are in your company, your business, your goals, and then make sure that that fits the room, because we all know you don't want
Yeah.
to be the smartest person
And
in it.
it's the response that you get, too, as well, that if you're having those discussions and someone is kind of having that, going to your point of that vibe check where they're like either jealous or it's like this weird, like, it almost
Yeah.
turns into like a dick measuring contest type thing.
Yeah.
Like it happens. But really quick question on that is, so you're here in Vegas because you just spoke on a stage here.
Yes.
For it was like all women. So
Yes.
going into the mastermind side of things, is that talk to us a little bit about the benefits of being in maybe some masterminds or groups where like it's specifically for men or it's specifically for women or it's a combination.
I think it's both. It's both. I think it's both. I think it's great to try both. I think that I've been.
I will
in,
join an all women's group. I'll get my wig,
You are
my
not
stilettos.
welcome, Antonio.
Yeah.
Although you would fit right in. You got a little bit of sass to you. Okay. I don't know about you yet, Dan.
all
We've
good.
got to have
Yeah.
better conversation here
Not as sassy as him.
about this. But yeah, I've done all female, and I've done kind of where it's both in mixed. I say try them all. You're gonna again. I've probably been about 6 masterminds, and I could have done without at least 2 to 3 of them.
Mm.
And one thing I see in a lot of people is that when you dive into this world of self development and you start to invest and you feel the energy and the growth in you from being in these rooms, a lot of people, they want to do it all at the same time. Like,
What do you mean by that?
they want to not just get into the one mastermind, they want to hire 2 coaches, get in their second and third mastermind, all in the same 1 to 2 years. That can be overwhelming. So my advice would just be try one that speaks to you. I feel like some really great green flags of a mastermind that could be right for you is, if you've been to an event and you connect with the speakers, if they're speaking about things that you've wanted to tap into that maybe you've been afraid of, but now you're feeling like now's the time and you can actually learn from those people, that's great. Versus maybe a different event where it was inspirational, but maybe you couldn't find anything tactical of how you can help grow your business, because those are investments. And if you find yourself investing in the wrong things and you're not getting, the right tangible things that you can implement, then that's not good for you and your growth of your business.
The intangibles too, yeah.
I will say I invested in 10 masterminds in a year. No, just kidding. No, I will say the other aspect though is, the insecurities that come with being in the room with people that, like I'm all making billions and I'm making 6 figures. Like I've had that experience like a while. I mean, it was a while back. Right? I'm like talking to all these people
You're
like,
you make how much in a month? And
that's not even that. It's
5
like
a month. I'm
on my 5th company. I'm like, damn, bro, I'm a physical therapist. Like, what am I doing here with you? Like, I don't belong. So it can. Yeah. But I think it's either you can either wallow in it and say I'm just like I'm nothing, or you can just flip it around and say, all right, I got to step my shit up.
Yes.
Right? It's like I got to start elevating, and that's. I think for maybe a night, I just kind of beat myself up, and they're like, all right, bro, I gotta step it up. I think I'm doing some great stuff, which I was, but it's like, look at people around me. It's like, I'm like doing nothing comparatively speaking. So I think it's also an aspect too, where it's like, we look at comparison as like a thief, but I think sometimes it's like, all right, it's not gonna thief of joy. It's just maybe showing me where I'm at and what I could potentially be if I just maybe took some different actions.
Yes, 100%. And honestly, that feeling isn't negative, like you kind of just said at the end there. It's a good thing, because now you're out of your comfort zone, right? That overused word, but it's so true. If you're with people that don't motivate and you're like, oh man, yeah, well, I make the most out of anyone in a year. You need to be in different rooms.
Yeah, it can be like such an addictive, seductive place too, of just constantly,
But I'm looking at even at just insecurities, I'm not going to get on social media because maybe I have 0 following, or I sound like crap, or I look like crap, or I'm not going to get on stage or write a book. Like, things that hold us back from maybe elevating ourselves. Like you said, what do you want to grow your business, or do you want to stay in your pity party? What's more important? But you do find a lot of people kind of stay with the pity party sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes time to grow into that. To me, it almost correlates with people who have a fear of speaking. What happens if you've never spoken on a stage and now you're getting asked to? What if I fumble? What
that
if
is
I
most common.
What if I blank? What if they don't think I'm good enough? What if they see past the facade? Because as great as you are, you maybe are imagining, well, I should actually be here because maybe the other speakers are in a bigger, better place. But that's all ego. When you take it off yourself, especially on stages, you're there to serve. Like, my goal is always to come with a servant heart and to say, okay, what can I do to impact these people, to teach them something great, give a little bit of rah-rah, right? Motivation's always awesome. And so if you kind of take it off you, you're like, oh, guess what? If you fumble, you're just human. And that actually connects people to you even more.
I want to take a quick second and just say that, for the audience that's listening, that's actually what you told me, because we spoke on a stage together, you and I, last year in Florida.
Yeah.
And
you did amazing, by the way. Really, I'm proud of you. You did great.
So it was a conversation we had beforehand, because I was like, I haven't spoken on stage in like over 2 years, and I'm just jumping right on in. And then the person after me is like John Gordon. And I was like,
a little intimidating.
Yeah, my butthole went really, really tight. I'm like, And so I asked you about it, and that was kind of one of the things where he's like, hey, just come more from the perspective of like, how can I serve them the best way possible? And that those little mental shifts really do wonders.
They do. And that, I mean, how intimidating was that? Love John Gordon. And,
Yeah, it's
Like you're the opening
I'm
act for the for the main headliner.
crazy enough. Oh my gosh. I just found out from the team because, I also speak for selfpublishing.com and I go around and share how books impact lives. And I just found out I'm speaking on a stage with my mentor
Nice.
for the first time.
Are we allowed
On the
to
biggest
not yet, or are we
stage.
allowed to know who? Or
Yeah, I'll be speaking on stage with Jen
you go.
Gottlieb.
oh, there you go.
And thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, because where's my fist bump, bro?
Ugh,
Let's
there
go.
it is.
No, really, it's a proud moment for me, but it's more so that's where my mind may go, is like, oh my gosh, but what am I doing here? And then I realized the last 3 years I've put in the reps.
Yeah.
When you spoke on that stage, you helped hundreds, thousands of people with what you're an expert in. And people loved you and you helped answer really great questions. And it's like, we got to remember that, again, use comparison as a way to want to elevate yourself. Don't let it get you mixed up. One quick vulnerable thing, not to throw us off course, that I want to share though, is especially as a woman who is speaking on stages.
We totally
And
relate.
I think
Yeah.
we've had,
We relate. Yeah.
you're not that sassy. I will say, and we've spoke about this before, I almost didn't even start speaking on stages 2.5 years ago because I've gone through some autoimmune things. I've gained some weight. And part of me was like, I'm going to wait till I'm,
Like-
this size.
Yeah.
Or because, I came from the modeling industry
Yeah.
and I used to be like so ridiculously thin. And I'm so proud of myself. I think that's like the biggest accomplishment I have for myself this last like 2 years, is that I didn't let the lack of self-confidence in my physical body stop me, because I know I have so much more to offer than my body. And it was really cool to like have the shift of speaking on a stage and then realize, oh my gosh, people actually kind of love me still.
People love me.
No, not in a conceited way. But I was like, this is so cool. And now that I get to do it, can you imagine if I didn't get to speak top 30 with Grant Cardone's 10X stages? All the cool things I've done, like that wouldn't have happened if I let that one insecurity hold me back, which is a really big one. Whether you're male or female, like men go through that too.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it just feels so good to know that, cool, if I got over that fear, honey, nothing's stopping me. Okay. So
It's interesting that you mentioned that. That's, you think of lost opportunities.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't think, what, because you never know, you can't predict the future anyway. But you think about, all right, what is maybe the cost of inaction?
yeah.
And
Ooh, I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
the
how
cost
many,
of
and
inaction.
how many times you sit down and, like I've gone through that myself, not like just at my house, but like I'm at a seminar. It's like, what's the cost of you, the way you're doing shit? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, bro, like what have I lost out on
Yeah.
just by not maybe taking the action or making the phone call or getting out of my own securities and getting on social media or something like that. So it's like I tend to think we kind of, like you said, we stay with what's comfortable, but then we don't think about, all right, what's all the amazing stuff maybe I missed out on by just getting in my head and
Waiting
It-
until
Yeah.
the right moment,
Yeah.
until I hit 6 figures a year, until we all started somewhere. Even Alex Hermosi did. Like everyone starts from zero, and it takes reps and you doing the thing to
Yeah.
feel comfortable in that.
And it's such a different kind of mindset reframing, where, because Dan has a really good point, where some people really get rolling when they're thinking about the consequences of that inaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then also kind of on the flip side of it is that, you have a really good amount of people that take action more out of the thrill of that success. Is like, well, if I did do this, like what could happen that's positive?
Mhm.
Like what are the benefits of actually pushing forward? And so, because sometimes it's difficult to comprehend a consequence that you're not taking,
Mm-hmm.
versus like, all right, well, what if it did go right? What if I did, like, what else
Yeah.
could I have accomplished, or what else could happen? And so looking at it both ways really, really helps people kind of move forward too.
And I will say, to your point, to both of y'all's point, it really goes back to mindset, because only you know how hard you're willing to push yourself. And if you look at it as, what will I miss out if I don't do this? Versus, oh my gosh, what are the consequences? I feel like a lot of it's revolved around what are other people going to think if I mess up, if I fail. Like, bro, the world moves on. No one's as
You're
focused
not that
on you
important. Yeah.
as you think.
And no one even cares.
Like, have you ever met that person? And I've been that person too, where they haven't been on social media for like 6 months, 3 months, and then they're like, "What am I gonna write? I got to tell people, hey guys, sorry, I've been off socials for 6 months, and now I'm back." No one realized, but guess what? When you do, people are back to liking your stuff if they're attracted to what you're saying and what you're about. To me, it's kind of the same thing in showing up in life in general. Like, you're only doing yourself a disservice, if anything.
Yeah.
So, like, just show up.
I'm not always a big fan of tactics, but they're a necessity at some point. So, you get the mindset, like you said, you get the mindset developed person like, all right, you got me going, I'm ready. I sound like shit when I talk. All right, I'm not good. I know, Jen Gottlieb talks a lot about how she improved herself, but just tactically speaking, if somebody's, hey, I want to get on social media, but I sound horrible, or if they're in medicine and they sound doctorish. I mean, it was, no, but I mean,
I
it's
totally
true
get
though.
what you're saying, though.
I totally heard the sound in my
was-
head when you said that.
I mean, I was at an event even 2 weeks ago. I was actually a doctor in Vegas, and he's launching a political campaign, and he was giving a speech in a house, and it wasn't a monster. I mean, it was a big house, but it wasn't like massive. And even with the microphone, I couldn't hear anything he was saying, and I was maybe 30 feet away. I'm like, dude, I was like, and being a little judgmental, I was like, you sound like shit, but who's gonna like vote for you? And can't even hear you. People are gonna tune you out in a second. So from that standpoint, what are one or two things that maybe somebody can do on a fairly consistent basis to help them become a better speaker or maybe more comfortable speaking?
Yeah, here's the good news with that. Mentors can be found in all places, from conferences to books to YouTube channels to social media. First thing I'd say is start studying the people that you are into that inspire you in your industry, especially those, if you're wanting to be a speaker, study how they show up on podcasts. One thing that really helped me was getting into Toastmasters, like probably 6 years ago now, and figuring out how to hold back the smacking, like all of these phrases or words that we use, these filler words, things like that really help in presentation. Get a coach. Coaches always help. Those are the things that if you're serious about kind of, what Grant and them used to call OPS, using other people's stages, right? They've built the audience. So if you're coming in to speak to them, you have trust with them from association or by association, and really working to study how, the people you look up to do that.
Because that's a big one. Where was it? It was some kind of survey that was done. It's like such a famous survey that the number one fear that people have, and
Isn't
death is number 2, right?
That's crazy.
And then the first one is stages. And so it does feel like that is a natural progression with some careers, some career paths where it's like, okay, you're going to have to maybe do some podcasts. You're going to have to maybe do a panel. You're going to have to maybe do a presentation or speaking. And there's mental gymnastics that kind of happen with that of like, right. So there's the technical things that you mentioned. What are some mindset things that you really just need to have in order to be like, all right, we're doing this. We're getting on stages. I'm going to commit to actually getting better and build this skill.
I want to compare this to, if you're a person that hasn't been to, I'm going to stop there. If you're a person, no. If you're a person that, for example,
breathes oxygen.
I'm so tactical, that hasn't been to the gym in a while, and all of a sudden you go in there telling yourself you want to run 3 miles on the treadmill. Do you think you're going to be fearful of doing that? If you're going to go in there, you haven't been there in a while. Oh, I'm going to deadlift this much weight. So to me, it's the same with speaking, with becoming an author, with getting on social media. Take it a few steps at a time, invite some friends over and say, hey, I'm really wanting to do this cool thing. I have this talk together. I have an idea what I want to talk about. I don't know where I'm going to share it yet, but maybe I'm going to, pitch to a podcast. Tell me what you think about this idea, right? Going back to your sounding board. Get some feedback from your peers, your network, and then take some baby steps. Again, I'm always a fan of coaching just because I don't think I would have been here with a lot of my mentors and coaches
Mhm.
who are just so many steps ahead of me. And then realizing, oh, okay, I didn't have to spend 2 years in Toastmasters. I could have actually just been with a speaking coach for an hour twice a week. And in a month, I actually could have been prepared to speak on my first stage.
Mm.
It's going to be scary, but if you really kind of cut it down to little bite-sized chunks,
Mhm.
then it's all going to start to feel like your new normal.
This might be a little bit of a loaded question because I totally get this might look different from person to person, but I do believe that there's some situations where it's like, hey, for this particular thing, you might want to be in a group. You might want to go after Toastmasters and kind of do it collectively.
Yeah.
And in other situations, it's like, no, dude, get a coach, right? And for you, is there any advice you'd give to people where it's like, hey, maybe if this is completely new to you, the whole game, I recommend maybe doing this in a group at first, and then if you're feeling this, then a coach, then this, and that's the first part of the question. The second part is like, how do you identify a good coach, especially for someone that's never done it?
I want to start with that second part first because it's the most important. I don't want to say wasted because we all live and learn. And let me tell you, some
You're too
some
nice, man.
decisions,
Yeah.
some decisions
There's an
are
experience. Yeah.
hit harder than others, especially in the pocket. But one thing I've learned from spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaches and masterminds is that the best way to tell is one, going back, if are they walking their talk? Is this a person that you just saw come up? They have maybe 100, few hundred followers, and this is the first time you're hearing that they have this new launch of this thing that you want to invest in, but it's high ticket, right? That's a red flag. But if you find someone that you've seen them for years and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That person's speaking on another stage. That person's helping someone else. They have the testimonials. They have the videos. They've made this their life's mission to help with this thing. Then that's a pretty great sign. I would also say if a lot of coaches sometimes run events, go to one of their events, witness them in person, right? See how they treat their community. And what was the first one? I always forget the first question sometimes.
He pulled
so
to me.
sorry.
He did a double question.
He did a double question.
Which is
Let's go back.
rare, but
Let's rewind.
so I think the
group
s-
versus a coach.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so
so
Okay.
utilize one versus the other.
yeah.
Okay, yes.
So like Toastmasters versus
So-
one-on-one coach.
Yeah, so for me, I'm just going to hone in on speaking because that's what I'm just so passionate
yeah.
about right now is group coaching could be great, like we talked about Toastmasters, where you are getting rid of the ums and ahs, where you're trying to identify and gain clarity. Well, I have a cool life story, but I have this expertise, but I also want to be known for this one thing. How can I share my ideas and get feedback on where I should start and gain clarity around that? That could be really great for group coaching. When it comes to one-on-one coaching, when it comes to trying to craft your talk, when it comes to how much of my story do I share versus the tactical that I could provide an audience in a 10-minute talk versus a 20-minute versus an hour talk, which is very different. And you have to know how to time those things. Also, there are just so many other details that goes into being a speaker, from what kind of, negotiation skills do I have to ask to make sure that I have a contractual agreement that serves both me and them? How can we create a win-win? Well, that's going to take certain questions and conversation. And that way you're not, giving them too much or not providing enough to that stage. And so to me, that's when a one-on-one coach helps.
So what would you say? Yeah, I want to kind of, as we're coming to an end here, so to speak, I want to really kind of summarize a little bit and really kind of put the nail in the coffin as to why somebody should really start, building some authority, take writing a book really serious. Maybe it's not a stage I want to speak on, but just some kind of speaking engagement, maybe just, going to a local clinic or whatever it is, something like that.
100%.
What should that person do tomorrow? So you take immediate action. All right, what am I doing first?
Yes, I would really get clear on why you want to do that. Is there another element that you want to add? Is this an element that you want to add to your business because you're ready to speak to many? maybe you're opening up a second clinic. Maybe you're ready to write a book and you want to really expand the audience in a big way. I'll probably give like 3 to 4 top tips here, which is something I did mention earlier, which just has to do with do your due diligence and research. Start to study people that maybe are those 3 to 5 steps ahead of you. Number 2, seek out a sounding board.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your peers about that idea, because believe it or not, you might be surprised that some of them have thought about it too. And guess what? Now you have accountability locked in with it.
I thought you were saying like competition. Oh, you want this
Or
too? Okay,
competition.
all right, yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Depending on where your mindset's at, maybe. Nothing wrong with competition. And 3, I would really give yourself a timeline and a deadline of when you want to do that thing.
That's so good that you say that.
If you're going to write a book, don't say, I'm thinking about this thing and one day, we all know what happens with one day. All your thoughts and ambitions go into your text and Google graveyard. That's never fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, really give yourself a hard deadline and commit to it.
Love it.
There's a couple of really quick things I wanted to ask before. Was especially around like exiting a company, right? Because I think that's we're going back to kind of a natural progression of things. Is you're starting a business, you're learning all this stuff, personal development, getting coaching, masterminds, maybe eventually writing a book, maybe eventually getting on stages, and where we see that kind of happen a lot is when people they get into retirement or they exit or they do something else.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I had was, because you did this, was like, why exit a company that has been successful, especially when you have aspirations for other things?
For me personally, and I've met other people that exit for all kinds of reasons. Maybe they're at their peak and they were smart to exit when the company was at X amount of number. For me, I fell out of love with the world of construction. There were just so many fires to put out, so many days. To be really honest, it physically got me sick. The stress.
Yeah.
And I had, by that time, just these last 2 years, I had already been building my speaking skills, building my social media, doing other things that I started to realize, with hiring different managers and people to kind of take over my company, it was actually slowly starting to kind of go down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally my fault. And it's because I've been focusing my energy and my towards this new passion that I have. And that's when I realized it's because I'm ready for something new. And it's been a lot because it's like you're releasing an identity that you've had or that I've had since I was in my mid-20s. And it's been an adjustment. But to me, that was the biggest thing. To me, it wasn't about money. I almost got into government contracts, actually. I was about to sign a contract for government contracts, which is in the millions per contract. These are national state parks. These are the biggest of the biggest things you could think of. But that would mean I'd have to be there every single day managing my teams in construction. And I just knew that I wanted to feed into more of my creative self of what I'm doing now, which is like writing books and sharing positive messages.
It's that classic saying of, you have to let go of the good in order to get the great.
Yeah,
and
which is so hard.
Which is so hard, but you are living proof of that too. That if there's an entrepreneur that's watching, a doctor that's watching, that like, hey, this is so part of my identity, but I want to move in this other direction. It's pulling on my mind, it's pulling on my heart, my spirit. I really want to go here. That it's okay to actually do let go of that and embrace something completely new. Because who knows, you might be that might be something that's like 10x what you did before.
100%. And I think that the biggest takeaway from doing that, because it's been, over half a year and just like processing everything that it goes through exiting a company, is I will never regret betting on myself. And if I could just listen to the intuition versus the fear I have, then even if I fell at what I'm doing now, which I'm not going to let happen, by the way, even if that were to happen, I'd still be so much more happy knowing that I tried.
I love that. And on that note, if someone is watching this and they want to connect with you, learn more about how to work with you, 4S's and everything, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's at Amber Ybarra.
Love it. Amber, thank you so much. This was a real treat.
That was great. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.